This is Shawn Dutton, Flashprepper Network. I'm going to be doing a show on the Preparedness Radio Network, one of Dr. Prepper's networks, and we're going to be doing a show on Wednesdays, hopefully, about technology and the things that you can do with all the new technology with being a prepper and survivalist. Today on the show we have Dr. Prepper. He sold over 800,000 copies of his book, Making the Best of Basics. Are you there, Doctor?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Dr. Prepper's book came out in 1974, and Dr. Prepper was encouraged to make this book by his mother and his father. His dad used to bury cans, kind of like the original geocaching.
That's an idea.
How did you come up with the name Making the Best for Basics, Doctor?
Well, growing up, I was raised in what we'd call a self-reliant home. We had our own 40 acres, and during the war, I was raised on that, and we grew our own food pretty much on our own. We traded hay for the horses because we didn't grow hay. We didn't have enough room, but we did grow a lot of fruits and veggies, and we packed those away in jars and didn't freeze things in those days. That was a future opportunity for us. Or we'd smoke meat or hang animals out on the back porch, which is screened in, and we were farmers, and I learned the farming concept and how to take care of yourself in as much as you can. And so we were pretty much we were interdependent, but a lot more independent than dependent on anyone else. And it was it was our lifestyle, how I grew up. And my mom sent me a bunch of the recipes and things. When I asked her for a loan, she gave me the recipes and things, and I guess the worst thing I did was tape them all together into some long rows of similar kinds of things, then retape them as I cut and pasted, and next thing you know, I had a book. I wish I'd kept all those things. In those days, everything could be thrown away was thrown away. I just wish I hadn't done that. But those, they would be in my archives now. But the book came from that, and it was how I lived up to I was a teenager, and we moved to closer to outside the city, so we could go to the city schools. And my mama said she wanted me to have a better education than the county provided, so we did move, and so all that stuff was forgotten. At that time, I was in the band and playing football, all the things guys do, And so farming went away. We didn't have that, but we did have a garden all my life. And it wasn't unusual for us to come in from church on Sunday. My dad would walk out through the garden in his suit and pick corn and beans and things that are fresh. Just carry them in. It only takes a few minutes when your garden is lush. And my mother would have hot water boiling, and things would be cooked, and we'd eat them almost immediately right out of the garden. Nothing like a tomato that's still hot from the sun. The flavor is just it's indescribable. And we had corn on the cob that had only been hot. It had only been cooked for 5 minutes, and slathered with our homemade butter. I mean, those were the days, man. And recalling that, I wanted to help people be able to do that today. And so writing the book, bringing it all together, gave me the opportunity to honor my parents and my grandparents, the way I'd been raised, and to share with people how they too could enjoy. And the book's written to the urban dweller as opposed to ex-urban. Carla Emery wrote the book for the ex-urban wannabe. Mine was written for the urban reality, and how you could become prepared and live within the urban society by storing food that you like and to put it in your pantry, and then know how to fix it. Because the most important thing that I try to teach people about preparedness is what we call the three-legged stool. The three legs on the stool are practice, practice, and practice. And the more you practice, the better you get. Doesn't make you perfect, but it makes you a lot better. So Making the Best of Basics, the Family Preparedness Handbook, is designed to help people start from scratch, figure out what it takes to be prepared for a given period of time. They decide, and how to put those things into storage so that you can use them as you want. It's the concept of having a convenient store, the things you want and like in your own home, where you can go get them. They're exclusively yours and readily available no matter what's going on in society.
I'm kind of curious, 1974 is when the first book came out, and that's kind of the Nixon era. What was going on that you and your family would actually do all this stuff?
Yeah, actually, well, we'd gone through school on government financing. That is my 3 years of benefits of being regular Army. I had 3 years of college education, $151 a month, and I got a teaching stipend, and that get paid $175 a month. And I got a free parking place at the university in the teachers area, and so I was a catbird, man. That was a big deal. To drive that old Volkswagen bus and park it in among all those high-paid professors was really kind of a kick for me. But I got to teach and learn at the same time. I actually wrote courses for the degree. And once I got the degree, there were no jobs because it's winter. Nobody was hiring before Christmas. So hiring normally takes place in the summer. So I had that period of time, and I had that necessity to pay bills and to feed my folks, feed my kids. But the important thing was that we printed up the book and went to this preparedness fair being held in a local church, and I got a free table. I couldn't afford it, but I went in with, I think, 1,108 books. We sold all of them in about 3.5 hours. And so now I had cash in my pocket, paid all my bills, and I had back orders. And so we printed now 5,000 of them back to back instead of just on one side. Didn't have to assemble it. It was glued together, and we sold 5,000 of those in about 8 days.
So that's pretty amazing right there.
Yeah, and so now here I am, MBA, bright, smart. I'm thinking I'm smart. I'm thinking I'm bright. And I said, I got a business. I'm self-employed, whether I like it or not. And so now, about a month later, and we sold a few more. We printed again, took the profits, printed again. But about 2 months later, we had that little thing called the gasoline crisis. Remember in June of '74 when the gas went from 29 cents a gallon to $2.29 a gallon, and even higher in some places? Well, the book was perfect. Everybody panicked. We hadn't had any problems like that since the Korean War. We hadn't been threatened. There was peace and quiet. So what I did was go get I'd go to Kmart. There was no Walmart at that time. I'd go to Kmart and pick in the books, and they'd buy 1,000 at a time, write me a check right then and there. They could do that in those days. It may be what caused their demise, I don't know. But the important thing was that there were about 6 or 8 of them in the city, and so I went to each one of them, and they'd just buy books. I did take several trips in my Volkswagen bus to carry that many books. And we sold 250,000 books in about 3 months. And, for a bright young man, fresh out of graduate school, I was probably earning more money than anybody graduated, because that was a fantastic amount of money. Making $1 a book was a nice piece of change. Got me totally out of it, bought us a home, and bought a motorhome and took off with the kids and homeschooled them on the road. And we were traveling around Southern California with, in a 28-foot motorhome, Class A motorhome, and we stopped at a gas station in California, and with our Utah plates on it. When I was living in Salt Lake at the time, working for the governor, and people come up and say, "Oh, you guys come down here or use all our gas up." We get about 8 miles a gallon, and all these people driving little foreign cars that got plenty of mileage. So we were kind of stuck out like a sore thumb there in Southern California. And of course, I had 4 kids under 4. And twins. They were just running around everywhere. And we had a babysitter and a teacher with us. I mean, we just had more fun than you can imagine. And the book, so then I got a job, and I said I farmed out the book to a partner and let him take it on. And so for, I guess, about 16, 17 years, somebody else ran it. They'd send me a check every once in a while, and then it kind of almost died. I think came the Y2K thing in '92. We started working. The desert sand thing came up, and they said what do they call them? The complaints against the government, the anti-war movement, all that stuff. They were having rallies. And Bo Greitz was the big deal, and he gave talks, and we went along with him. And next thing you know, it switched to Y2K and panic for Y2K, and we sold 500,000 books there in a couple of years. So it was kind of a fun time. We traveled 175,000 miles in our car, hauling our little puppy with us, a little Yorkie. We had a big time and stayed on the road. We were on the road most of the time.
People that don't remember Y2K, it was a pretty big thing because I was doing security for government, and they were just cutting out their computers and stuff and updating them like crazy around then. There was a real panic.
Yeah. So the book is about getting on the road to self-reliance, and so we went on the road selling self-reliance and selling preparedness. The word kind of came natural to me. It was the first time it had been used in a book title. So family preparedness is what the book was about. And if you sit down with it, it always has been one, that you analyze what you eat, and then you determine how much it takes, how many servings it takes for your family. And if you work through the arithmetic and work through the charts, it will help you make selections and help you know what's out there, what the choices are, and then you can write them down and then start purchasing towards those and establish a budget. You can do all kinds of things with it. It's work. It's not interactive. It's not a computer program. You have to do it by hand. And the reason you do it by hand is that's how you learn. Anybody can push it. A lot of these programs say, how many people you have in your family? And you push a button that says you need X pounds of this and so many pounds of that. Well, mine makes you figure it out by servings, 4-ounce servings or whatever. Whether it's freeze-dried, dehydrated, or fresh or canned, it's all the same. All you have to do is know how big a serving is, how many servings in a can, and you can determine what it's going to cost you. It's pretty simple math, but you have to do it by hand. You don't let the computer do it for you.
It's a big fat book. It's like a jumbo book, and it's got a lot of guides and things you can fill out, and it's just loaded with everything you'd ever want to know about family preparedness is in that book.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites.
Thank you. It's about butter, not guns. It's about making choices of things that you like and want, as opposed to buying what somebody else prescribes. I've never sold food. I don't sell anything except the information. I realized as a graduate student getting in the MBA program that the future was about information, and that's what basics is. It's making the best of basics. So it covers a broad range of things. The basics you need, wheat and water and a little salt and a little oil to do things with, and basically you learn it teaches you how to sprout. It teaches you how to cook things. There are some recipes so you can use the basics, but it's not a recipe book. The recipes are there to kind of help you get into utilization in case you don't have any other information. But the book gives you a lot of alternatives as to where to find things. You can go. It tells you books for sprouting, and books for this, and books for that, and books for flour, and books for whole grain. And I mean, the section on books was huge. I've cut it back because some of the books are now gone. The authors have died. The books aren't available anymore. So I had to go through and do a lot of purging. But at one time, I had 55 pages of books by category. You can look them all up on the internet. There's a lot of work getting it out there.
It's a thick book too. It's kind of jumbo size, isn't it?
It's 3 pounds. It's a big book. It's 3 pounds, 8.5 by 11. So the charts are big. You can write in them, and it's a full size page. And it's 562 pages. You get your money's worth. And I think they can get it on your site simply by clicking on the link and buying it. Can't buy it on Amazon. I don't sell there. They're just a discount house, and I know what the book is worth. I know what it can do it can save your life. It's worth the price, and I urge people to go buy it, obviously, because it's been out there longer than anybody else's, and has outsold all of them, many of them all together, because it's simple, it's easy, it's direct, and it doesn't talk about anything negative. It's not about gloom and doom. It's about booming. It's about blooming, as Dr. Bones says. I have a chapter on medicine by Doc Bones and Nurse Amy. They wrote that chapter, 60 chapters or so, to talk to you about the concept of self-care. That's just an introduction, and they give a lot of references to places you can get more information. So the whole thing was written for guidelines, and then with the alternatives of where to get more detailed information. So if you want more information on cooking wheat, it tells you some of the books that are all about that. But mine was written to introduce people to the concept and to hope that they would take advantage of it and expand from there.
It's actually the Bible of family preparedness. If there's any book out there that you ever wanted to get on family preparedness, this is the book you start with right here, because I go to bookstores and things all the time, libraries, and I look at every book I can on family preparedness and stuff. But your book is overall the best book out there for any of this.
Thank you. The people seem to think so because they bought a lot of them. I'm self-published. Every time the book gets printed, I have to go plunk down cash because I don't have credit with the printing companies. They don't allow that. I'm not a major publisher, and so the nice thing about it is that it's very personal. It's like each one of the books. I wrap them very carefully. I put them in a box and ship them out. It's like I'm sending my heart out because I feel that way about it. The book has done well. It has a lot of information. It's not about guns. It's about butter, which means we don't talk about guns. If you want to get a gun book, get a good gun book. I was in the Army, know how to use a gun, know how to fire a rifle, know how to hurt people. I was a medic. I learned how to fix people, too. So the book is about the polite side of preparedness. There's a down and dirty, nasty side to it if it gets that bad. But one of the things that it'll help you do is prepare your family for whatever you want. And if you think of worst case scenario in your territory, wherever you live in your community, that's what you want to prepare to in as much as you can. I have to tell you also, when I tell you that it'll help you prepare for most anything, there's some things for which you cannot prepare. It doesn't matter how well prepared you are. If a tsunami comes and you're lowland, you're dead. If a volcano erupts, 10 miles from your house, you're gone. Those are the things you can't control. There's some of them are so bad they're just out of control. But otherwise, if you're dead, it doesn't matter, I guess. If you're not, I teach you how to be ready to deal with it. Because you hear remember you heard what they call them, the rules of three? People have what they call the rules of three. If you, 3 minutes without air and you're dead. 3 days without water and you're dead. 3 weeks or 3 months, or sometimes 3 weeks without food and you're dead. Well, 3 seconds from seeing the flash of an atomic explosion, you're dead. A lot deader. And 3 hours if you're in sub-zero weather and not properly attired. 3 hours, you're dead. So the thing is, there's some real things you have to be aware of. There are hundreds and hundreds of rules of three, but the one I was going to tell you about is the one that people say, pray for the best, and hope for the best and fear the worst. But there's a third leg to that little stool, and that says, be able to deal with whatever happens to you. That's the one that I wrote the book to, is that we can't control what happens, but we can control how we respond to it.
Another thing about your book is the 40th anniversary book's coming out pretty soon, isn't it?
Yeah, in the next few months, probably in the next 6 months it'll be out, because March of next year is the 40th anniversary. It's probably been out longer than most any other books. The next generation doesn't have the experience that we lived through. The next generation is different. I don't know whether X, Y, or Z, but it's a different generation. And they don't have the experience. They didn't have to live that experience. Some of them don't even remember the gasoline crisis. So a lot of people make it up as they go. As you know, they steal ideas and then try to simplify them. Some things you just can't simplify. Now, technology is, you mentioned your show's going to be on technology, and you'll be explaining to a lot of people new products. But, a recipe is a chemical formula. It takes so much flour, it takes so much water, so much leavening, a little sugar, a little salt, and a little either lard or oil. And if you mix it up and let it rise a couple of times and do it anywhere near right, you're going to get a loaf of bread. Now, it can be hard, it can be soft, it can be thick, it can be really, really bubbly. There are a lot of things it can be, but it's the same formula. But you have to have 325 to 350 degrees of heat on it in order for it to become bread, a loaf of bread. And there are lots of ways you can do it. You can do it with a camp stove. You can do it with a volcano type product. You can do it with a Dutch oven, or you can do it in a frying pan, or you can bake and have an edible bread. It won't be the same as a loaf of bread from the grocery store, but it'll be bread that you can have in a sandwich or eat something with it, or cook it with egg on it. You see, the whole purpose of being prepared, or the way to become prepared, is to practice and practice and practice. It won't make it perfect, but it will make it permanent once you learn how to do this. So your technological explanations will make it easier to be prepared, but remember, you still have to cook dough to make bread.
I've talked to a lot of people that have bought your book, and some of the people were telling me they bought a book for their kids when they went off to college because they wanted them to just get an idea of what it would be like to be prepared. I always thought that was a good idea. And I think with my book, even though I purchased it in 2010, when your new book comes out, the 40th anniversary book, I'm going to give my book away and buy the 40th anniversary book. And I've always liked to kind of share, as much as I can with people. And buying a book and giving it to somebody is a great idea to help them get prepared and start on it.
There are two things, two phenomena that have been kind of interesting to watch. People come to a show and there's a new book and say, I got your old book. I said, bring it in. I'll give you a new one for it. And they'll come in the next day perhaps with the book and they look at it and they look at the new book and say, no, I'm not giving up my book. I'll just buy the new one. Another one is that you never loan your books. Never loan basics to anybody. It will not come back. And the libraries can't keep them. Libraries cannot keep them in stock. They just disappear. I don't know whether that's good news or bad. It must be basic. You see, people can understand the information. I wrote it in about 8th grade language. Fog factor was 8th grade, so that people could read it and understand. No big words like I use when I talk. Nothing grandiose about just basic information, because I wrote it for my kids. I wrote that so they could read it. And I can tell you there are people who told me if it hadn't been for the book, they wouldn't have been able to make recipes out of powdered milk to make yogurt and stuff. And they hugged me and tell me how glad they were that they had the book. I'm thinking now about doing the 40th year anniversary, which will be the 14th edition. It's already it'll be over 600 pages with a new one because we're adding some new stuff. I have some other contributors who know more about things than I do, and I'm having them write about it, and of course giving them credit for it, so that the book will be more general than it is now. It'll talk a little bit more about camping and other kinds of things. But did you know you could live off sprouts? If you had enough sprouting seeds, you wouldn't have to plant a garden. You could have the garden growing in your kitchen window. In 2 to 3 days, you got edible sprout, and they're up to 100 times more nutritious sprouted than they are planted in the ground. So it's amazing that you can do these kinds of things. There are all kinds of alternative ways to make it if you understand them, and my book tries to go into some of those things. So I call it kitchen gardening, because with a quart jar, you can do that in your kitchen window.
It's almost like a college course. It's almost like a course you take in college, and that's the workbook. If you sit down 100 guys in a militia and trained them with that book, they'd be a pretty powerful militia because they'd each be self-sufficient and prepared.
Well, I have to tell you that my good friend Peggy Layton has written, I think, 9 books, and she tells people that, well, I read, well, maybe she tells me anyway, she said, your book was curriculum in one of my home ec classes when I was going to college. And she said, made me want to write. And so she's just expanded some of the chapters to make them into books, which is great. Competition is good. This is America. And she sells a lot of books. And I tell people about her, interview her on my radio program because she's bright. She's much younger, next generation, so to speak. And it's just good to have people out there who are striving to share. Nobody gets it all. Nobody ever has, and nobody ever will. So it doesn't matter how good that book is. Everybody's not going to read it. Everybody doesn't have a Bible, and there have been billions of those printed. So, you're not going to get it all, but you can help enough people that you feel good about what you've done, and I would say that I'm in that class of people. I feel good that a lot of people have found help. Everybody... a lot of people I talk to, I've never had anybody say, your book is dumb. Oh, no, I did. Had a gal send it back. Out of all the years, 800,000 copies, we've had less than a dozen of them returned. Over 39 years. One gal sent it back and said, my husband thinks he's a prepper. He doesn't understand. I'm not interested. Here's your book. I want my money back. And so I sent her money back gladly. Typically, if you tell me I want the money back, I tell you, if you'll take it to the library and have them give you a receipt for it, I'll send you your money. Don't ship it back. That's just wasting money. Give it to a library. They'll love it.
I also bought the CD version. You have it on CD now.
Oh, the CD is a great deal because it's EMP proof. It is stamped. It is not digitized. It is stamped like a vinyl record, like the old vinyls. I actually sent it to Salt Lake. They take it and turn it into they press it into a master, a metal master, and they use that to print it like the old records were done. That makes it EMP proof. It's not just digitized like a thumb drive. So it's a fantastic. It has 9,000 extra pages on the CD-ROM with all the history of the Civil Defense organization, which preceded FEMA, some of the old FEMA information, some of the old. It doesn't have much to do with Department of Homeland Security. That's all new. But the book, the complete book, Appropriate Technology, is on there, and it's a whole lot better book than the Foxfire series because it's plain, a lot of pictures. It's made for basic technology. How to start a fire, how to make a bow so you can have a bow drill. All those kinds of things are in there, like for third world countries, and it's a big book, and it's on the CD-ROM. The CD-ROM costs less than the book by itself, but it's just tremendous to have all the 9,000 pages of additional information about things to do, how to build a bunker like they did during the Vietnam conflict or Korean conflict in those days. Just lots of stuff, plus the book, of course, and it's all searchable internally and externally to the Internet. So all the Internet links are live. You just click on it on the CD-ROM, and it goes right out to the site of the advertiser or whatever. So we put a lot of effort into the CD-ROM, and there's a download. The same thing is on the download. You can get the download instant, no wait, no freight. It's there within a few minutes, like 3 minutes, and you've got it, and you're ready to read it. And it scans. It's a PDF also, and so you can do all the searching and everything right on your screen. And you can print from it the pages you want to work on so you don't have to write in your book. And it gives you the opportunity to a lot more flexibility of using it.
It's information you'd want to have in your bug-out bag. I think downloading it and putting it on a flash drive or something would be something you definitely want to do to keep in your bug-out bag because there is just tons and tons of information in there that
That's one of the longest years, yeah, because if you're going to bug out, do it right. And it walks you through all the kinds of things you ought to have in order to be able to, you have to determine where you're going. But it helps you have a checklist. And they aren't just listings. They're tables. They're by category. You can write down the price, whether or not the date you acquire them, all that kind of stuff. And there are other chapters like how to get your household together, getting your act together, I called it, but my wife said, call it household. How to go through your household, your house, and list and get a listing of all the kinds of things that are valuable to you, so that in case of a damage like a fire in Colorado that burns your house down, you have that with you, and you can put that on a flash drive. There's just so much you can do with it. I've tried to look at the things that are basic, not some of the ephemeral stuff. So I don't tell you how to do a lemon cream pie. That's really not basic. That's advanced stuff. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you 10 ways to make a loaf of bread.
Yeah, even if even though it's called Making the Best of Basics, even if you're a seasoned veteran at this book is for you too, because it's everything. It's got everything in there, and the guides alone are worth it. All the things that you can print out and things like that are just, I've never seen anything like it.
Nobody's ever taken the time to detail it out like I did. A lot of people have knocked off the idea. Even the federal government, FEMA has used some of the charts and things, but they don't give you columns to write things down in. They just give you the basic information in a list, and then you have to go deal with it. The technology. One of the nice things too about the book is it has advertising in it, and all those people were vetted by me before we put them in the book, obviously. But they are people who have good products, and they supply their products to, across the board to preppers and to others. And a lot of those things you can buy direct and save the overhead of having to go to a store. So we've tried to make the book as meaningful as possible, try to detail the things that need detail, and not gloss over anything. But the book does well. We can't keep it in print. It's just cost, because I have to come up with the money to print it before we get it delivered. That's always, I have to, like everybody else, I live on a budget and don't always have the money available for it. we've been out of print almost 5 months, simply because I didn't have the capital. Now I do, and it's printed. It's in the warehouse and ready to ship. So urge you to go to PhoenixMilitia.com and click on the link there, and it'll take you right to the landing page. You buy the book, and a little bit of that will help the Phoenix Militia, do their job.
Yeah, we also have it on our new website, the FamilyPreparednessExpo.com, and there's thousands of products on there that can help you out. But we have, I think your book's on every single page on that website. It's about a 5-page website that we started. And we wanted to have people were always asking, where do I get this? Where do I get that? Where do I buy the book? And we wanted to have one general place where we could tell people you can go here. And it's like an online bunker for products. And,
I love it.
We got that started for people.
Yeah, I talk about the path to preparedness because that's where you start on that path. And then that breaks out into the road to self-reliance. And then that will take you to the highway to happiness. So that's kind of how I lay that one out. And, it's my job is to help. The book is supposed to help define the details of your goal of becoming prepared or getting better prepared, whatever's in your family preparedness plan. And then if you'll make a commitment to put it into action, you can develop the abilities and attitude and things that are necessary to turn your goal into accomplishment. And I think that's important.
Too, because it's not talking about eating wild plants or living off the land like these guys think they can grab a rifle and run out the door and live off the land.
Yeah.
It's real stuff that, it's the real, making the best of basics.
Well, basics are good enough for most people. Some people never get above that. Some foreign countries, some second and third world countries haven't even seen the basics yet. But, if you can help people assume a preparedness level, if you don't have any, you're going to be victimized by conditions sooner or later. If you have some level of preparedness, you can handle emergencies and disasters. What you don't want to be is in a position to have to make it up as you go when a survival situation is forced upon you. You don't want to have to try to figure it out at that point in time. And then ultimately you can live a lifestyle of being self-reliant so that you are in charge of your life, well-defined life that has dimensions, but you don't have to be, it doesn't have to dominate your whole life. So preparedness is a lifestyle. It's how you live when you have a choice.
I have a colonel in an army overseas. He writes me almost every day, and his people are suffering from floods and droughts, and he's like, help us. Can you figure out a way to help us? And it's like, I couldn't even imagine having to live like that. And, even if you had your book, you probably couldn't do a whole lot to help those people. But in this country, with your book, you can do a lot to help yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the nice things about it is that if you look at preparedness as being life insurance and you're your own agent, it gives you an idea. I always tell people, you can't buy insurance on a burning barn. And they say, oh, okay, you're right. And then I say, you can't buy insurance on a wrecked car or a sinking ship either, for that matter. And they say, yeah, I got it. I said, and you can't buy insurance on a dead body. And so finally they do get it when they realize that insurance is something for the living, something that you have to buy when there's no need for it. That's the way the risk works. But once they do that, as their own agent, they make much better decisions. So that's kind of part of the decision matrix that I supply people. But, they're only, you have to assess your risks to determine how you're going to prepare and what you're going to prepare. The risks are based on natural disasters, and it's based on on man-caused disasters, and then on personal disasters. And they cascade down one from another. If you remember Fukushima, when the big wave came through and went over some of the bridges, it just crossed the land and hit that power plant. The wave was okay. It wasn't bothering anything particularly, except just killing people by the hundreds and tearing up real estate like nobody's business. But when it hit that reactor, it shut it down, caused heating problems, and now all of a sudden it's a different problem that's a man-made institution, and now it's been hit by a much higher, stronger power that comes from nature. But the bottom line is that people die. That's very personal when people die, and especially if they were your friends or your neighbors or whatever. And so once we get a feeling about what our risks are in terms of weather, weather's one of them. Another is the geologic kinds of things. A tsunami is geologic, something moving under the water. The plates make a movement, and so you have a reaction to that. Earthquakes, tremors, those are physical things that happen. A volcano or sinkhole, those are what we call the geologic transformations that take place. But the natural ones are the other kind, are weather-related. Too much rain, too little rain, too much cold, too much heat. I mean, all of those are things that can happen within a climate, within a term of a year. And doing that, having those things happen is what happened to us, is what gives us experience and the ability to keep on practicing, because you have to practice in order to be able to save your life. So that should get you pretty much up to speed on what the book will do, what it is, and what it'll do.
We got about a couple minutes left now, Doctor. Making the Best of Basics is the book. You can pick it up at familypreparednessexpo.com. Another thing that I was kind of interested in is some of these other countries, like my wife just got back from Slovakia, they don't even have bookstores or anything because most of the American books haven't been translated into their language, and they're not real big book writers and stuff. So, once you learn this stuff, you can, and if you ever have to go overseas or anything, you can take the knowledge with you.
True. Yeah. The access to equipment and gear and stuff, edible stuff, is based on the economy. But if you can only get French bread in France, that's bread. You can also store the parts and pieces that it takes to make French bread, which has very little oil. It's very, very easy to make. Those are the things that we have to be willing. The adaptation comes when we have to deal with products and with lifestyles we're not familiar with. If you're not used to cooking with shall we call it lard, you have to learn how to do that when you're in some foreign countries, because they don't have olive oil and what do you call it? Coconut oil and some of those ephemeral things that we get over here at very, very high prices. Yet in the islands, you can probably get coconut oil virtually free because it's everywhere. Everybody buys it. Everybody can produce it. So it's all a matter of, are you practicing your skills? Are you learning how to do things? Are you learning how to use the equipment you have? Do you take it out and practice with it? Do you turn the lights off and learn how to cook on a Coleman camp stove or whatever? Those are the things that we learn to do as preppers. That's the prepper lifestyle, is learn how to adapt to the conditions with which you have to deal.
And people are always asking me, how do you get started in being a prepper or survivalist or any of this? I always tell them you start by getting Dr. Prepper's book, Making the Best of Basics. I mean, that's the best way for me to tell somebody how to get started, is to start with that book, because the guides and everything are in there. Everything you want to know about getting started is in there. It's a good book.
Well, I really appreciate the praise you give it. It's been out a long time. A lot of people have worked on it. A lot of people have commented on it, so all that has made for changes and improvements. And it's now in its 13.5 edition, the 29th printing, and it's readily available by going over here to either Phoenix Militia or to the new Family Preparedness Expo page. Are you going to be doing expos, Shawn?
That's a virtual expo. I'm hoping to maybe pick up a few speaking engagements and stuff like that. We got other speakers already on the page that have signed up. Survival, I forget what her name is now. Survival Mom, not Survival Mom.
No, Survivor Jane. Yeah,
Survivor Jane's on there. And
she's
got a huge following and everything already, but there's a lot of people. We're trying to get like a centralized area where we can all get organized, because the prepper movement's getting big so fast and everything's going on. And I think this might be your last book that you're putting out, the 40th edition. And we wanted to talk to you and everything and see where all this is headed, but I don't see anything stopping anytime soon. I think everybody needs to be prepared.
Well, and nobody, if we all did it at once, we'd overload the system. But just think if 5% of the population every month did something positive. Think what that would do to improving our country's economy. People would go back to work. Truckers would have to be hired to haul stuff. Trailers would get put into use. And grocery stores would have to hire more people. The vendors and the wholesalers would have to have more people and more product. Cash would flow. Life would be good. But no, we want to go fight about stealing stuff from people and taking it away by legislation instead of creating the incentive to have food stores. I'd love to see a 401 food program, 401 food program, where if you buy certain foods and put them in long-term storage, and they can be packed for long-term storage, that you get some tax credits just like you do on a 401k. Why not? We give them for everything else.
When people want to get started in all this, I tell them, this is like the college course in family preparedness. If you want to if you're really serious about helping yourself or your family or your friends or your siblings or whatever, then get this book, and get prepared yourself, and then you can help other people. You don't become a preparedness person by starting with a go bag or something. You got to start at the beginning. The beginning is the things that you teach in this book. And I think if everybody started there, and then they have questions, and they can get a hold of us, and we can tell them, this is what we do for a bug out bag, or this is what we do for a recon bag, or you're kind of a bug in person. You want to bug in, you don't want to bug out.
Yeah. It's not going to be safe to bug out. I mean, where do you go? And if you don't leave early, you're not going to get there because the ways are going to be blocked. But we tell people it's never too late to start. There are households forming every day. It's never too late to start, and you'll probably never finish, because if you had a year's supply and you ate a meal, you'd now be down to 364 and 2/3 of a year's supply, and every day you eat it without replenishing it, you're reducing your supply. So it is a continual thing. It is a lifestyle. You learn how to think preparedness. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it becomes fun because you're constantly working against the economy as it strives to increase prices. You learn how to shop better, you learn how to think better. And, there's another rule of 3 that's important. Store what you use what you store, use it or lose it.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today, Doctor, and hopefully I'll have a show on your network pretty soon, and we'll get going from there.
Tickled to have you, pleased to have you, and thank you for being a part of our PRN.
And thank you.
What your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
I believe in America.